The doctors at Pine Valley Psychiatric Hospital told me my twin brother had gone insane. I'm Arnold Bradley, and what I found in that psychiatric ward changed everything. Daniel was strapped to a hospital bed, heavily sedated, mumbling about stolen money and forged signatures. The medical staff said he was delusional. My son Michael said Daniel needed professional help for his paranoid episodes about family finances. But when I looked into Daniel's eyes, I saw something the doctors missed. Pure, terrified sanity. That's when I realized someone had orchestrated this nightmare. Someone who knew that locking up the family accountant was the perfect way to steal $9.2 million in real estate. Someone who thought a blue-collar contractor would never figure out their white-collar crime. They were wrong. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. Because what happened next involved me switching places with my twin, infiltrating the hospital, and exposing a fraud so sophisticated it nearly destroyed 3 decades of immigrant family legacy. This is how I became my brother to hunt his abuser. 3 days earlier, I was installing new copper pipes in a rental property on Oak Street when my phone rang. Michael's voice had that tone, the one he used when explaining things to people he considered beneath him. "Dad, we need to talk about Daniel." "What about him?" "He's been acting strange, making wild accusations about family finances. I think he needs professional help." I turned off my torch. Daniel managed our rental properties, 17 units across Austin, built with 30 years of 6 a.m. starts and weekend overtime. If something was wrong with the books, I needed to know. "Strange how?" "He's claiming someone forged a power of attorney. Says money's missing from the property accounts. Classic paranoid delusions, according to the doctor." The signature looked wrong, but I needed proof. I drove to Pine Valley Psychiatric Hospital that afternoon. The receptionist, a young woman with pink nail polish, barely looked up from her computer screen. "Visiting hours end at 4. I'm here to see my brother, Daniel Bradley." She glanced at the clock. 3:45. "Room 237, elevator to the second floor." Daniel was strapped to the bed, staring at nothing. His face was puffy, eyes unfocused. The man who could calculate rental yields in his head looked like a zombie. "Danny, it's me, Arnold." He turned slowly, blinking like he was seeing through fog. "Arnold? They said I was sick, that I made it all up." "Made what up?" "The signature, on the power of attorney. It wasn't mine." A nurse appeared in the doorway, tall, efficient, with the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Visiting hours are over. Mr. Bradley needs his rest." I stood up, but Daniel grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "Building permit," he whispered. "Number BR 2024-0892. Check the signature." The nurse stepped forward. "Sir, please don't agitate the patient." I nodded and left, but Daniel's words stuck with me. That evening, I drove to the county courthouse. Building permits were public record. I found BR 2024-0892, a renovation permit for our Oak Street property, filed 3 weeks ago. The signature on the permit application was Daniel's. Clear, confident, unmistakable. I pulled out my phone and photographed it. Then I drove to my office and opened the filing cabinet, where I kept all our business documents. There, in the manila folder marked Legal 2024, was the power of attorney Michael mentioned. Dated March 15th, notarized by Jennifer Walsh, Daniel's signature at the bottom. I held both documents under my desk lamp. The signatures were different, not slightly different, completely different. The building permit signature had Daniel's characteristic tight loops on the B in Bradley. The power of attorney's signature was loose, hurried, wrong. Someone had forged my brother's name on a legal document giving them control of our family properties. My phone buzzed. Text from Michael. "Dad, I know this is hard, but Daniel signed over financial authority before his breakdown. I'm handling everything now. Don't worry about the business side. You focus on what you do best." What I do best. Michael had been saying things like that since he got his MBA from UT Austin. "Dad, you're great with your hands, but let me handle the complicated stuff." "Dad, you don't understand modern real estate law." "Dad, stick to fixing pipes and let me manage the investments." 30 years I'd been building this portfolio, property by property, paycheck by paycheck, every rental house bought with money I earned, swinging a hammer and crawling through crawl spaces. But because Michael had a college degree and spoke without a trace of the Spanish accent I never quite lost, he thought he was smarter than me. I pulled up our business bank account online. Username, D. Bradley. Password, the same one Daniel had used for 15 years. The account showed our normal balance until 3 weeks ago, March 15th, the same date as the forged power of attorney. Transfer $128,000 to account ending in 7743. The number on that bank statement made my blood freeze. I called Wells Fargo the next morning. The customer service representative was helpful but firm. I can only discuss account details with the account holder or someone with power of attorney. I'm Daniel Bradley's brother and business partner. I understand, sir, but without proper authorization, the power of attorney was forged. You'll need to file a fraud report with local police and provide documentation. I hung up and called Detective Frank Wilson. Frank's son, Tommy, worked construction. Good kid, reliable, the kind Michael dismissed as just manual labor. Frank owed me a favor from when I fixed his kitchen pipes for free after the city inspection. Frank, I need advice about financial fraud. Family situation. Come by the station. We'll talk. But first, I needed to see Daniel again, because if someone was stealing our family's life savings, they'd made one critical error. They'd forgotten that the Bradley twins had been finishing each other's sentences for 61 years. And if Daniel was as medicated as he looked yesterday, maybe, just maybe, no one would notice if we switched places for an hour or two. The plan was forming in my mind. Simple, direct, like everything I'd built with my hands. Michael thought manual labor meant manual brain. He was about to learn how wrong he was. That night, I spread every property document across my kitchen table. 17 properties. 9 single-family homes, 6 duplexes, 2 small apartment buildings, combined value $9.2 million, according to the latest tax assessments. Each property told a story. 1247 Oak Street, the first one, bought in 1992 with money saved from 18 months of overtime work. 3456 Maple Avenue, purchased after Maria and I finally paid off our own house. The duplex on Pine Street, bought when Michael graduated high school, meant to fund his college education. Every property deed had my father's signature from when he co-signed the original mortgages, back when banks didn't trust a Mexican immigrant contractor's income statements. Dad died in 2018, but his dream lived on in these properties. Build something that lasts, mijo, he always said. Something your grandchildren can inherit. Rental income, $2,850 per month, per unit. Total monthly income, $48,450. Annual gross, $581,400. After taxes, maintenance, and mortgage payments on the remaining 3 properties, we cleared about $350,000 per year. Not bad for a guy who never finished high school. But if Michael gained control of the properties, what would happen? I knew my son. He'd talked for months about maximizing property values and capitalizing on the Austin real estate boom. Translation: sell everything, take the cash, invest in some tech startup his MBA friends recommended. $9.2 million. Gone. Converted into whatever investment opportunity promised the highest returns. No consideration for the fact that these properties represented 3 decades of backbreaking work. No understanding that rental income would support me and Daniel through retirement. No respect for the fact that Grandpa's dream was stability, not speculation. And what about Daniel? If he stayed locked in Pine Valley Psychiatric Hospital, who would question Michael's decisions? The medical records showed paranoid delusions about financial theft. Who would believe anything Daniel said about forged documents or missing money? I pulled out a calculator. If Michael sold all 17 properties at current market value and invested the proceeds in an index fund earning 7% annually, he'd have about $650,000 per year in investment income. More than our rental income. The math worked, on paper. But I'd seen what happened to people who sold real estate for stock portfolios. Market crashes, economic downturns, companies that looked solid one day and disappeared the next. Real estate was different. People always needed places to live. Even during the 2008 recession, our properties stayed rented. Michael didn't understand that, because he'd never experienced real financial uncertainty. I'd paid for his education, his MBA, his first apartment. He'd never worked construction in July heat, or crawled under a house at midnight to fix a burst pipe. He thought wealth was numbers on a computer screen, not something you built with your hands. If I stayed silent, if I accepted the narrative that Daniel was mentally ill, and Michael was the responsible son taking care of family business, I'd lose everything. Not just the money, the legacy, the proof that an immigrant construction worker could build something lasting, the security I'd promised Maria before she died, the inheritance I'd planned to leave Michael and his children. But confronting Michael meant risking family relationships. If I accused him of forging documents and questioned the medical diagnosis, I'd be calling my own son a criminal. That's a line you can't uncross. Still, the evidence was clear. The signatures didn't match. The timing was suspicious. And Daniel's whispered warning about building permit BR 2024-0892 proved his mind was sharper than the medical records suggested. I had two choices: accept the loss and hope Michael would take care of me in my old age, or fight back and risk losing my son forever. Then I remembered something Dad used to say: a man who won't defend what he built doesn't deserve to keep it. The next morning, I called Rebecca Thompson. Rebecca was a real estate attorney who'd rented our duplex on Elm Street for 3 years. Good tenant, always paid on time, took care of the property like it was her own. When she bought her first house, she thanked me for keeping her rent affordable while she saved for a down payment. Rebecca, I need legal advice. Family situation involving potential fraud. What kind of fraud? Forged power of attorney, unauthorized bank transfers, someone may be stealing my family's rental properties. Arnold, that's serious. If you have evidence, we need to act quickly. How much money are we talking about? $9.2 million in property value. So far, $128,000 in unauthorized transfers. Jesus, can you come in today and bring everything, documents, bank statements, medical records if you have them? I looked at the stack of papers on my kitchen table. 30 years of work, 30 years of getting up before dawn and coming home after dark. 30 years of building something my father would be proud of. I'll be there in an hour. Because family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you fall. And if Michael thought I'd fall quietly, he'd underestimated the man who taught him to stand up in the first place. I met Michael at the hospital cafeteria the next day. He wore a charcoal suit and carried a leather briefcase, the image of a successful businessman visiting his hospitalized uncle. Dad, good to see you. How are you holding up? I need to ask you about something. He sipped his coffee, checking his watch. Make it quick. I have a conference call with potential buyers for the Oak Street property. Buyers? Dad, we discussed this. Real estate values are peaking. Now's the time to liquidate and diversify the portfolio. We never discussed anything. Michael set down his cup with the careful patience of someone explaining basic concepts to a child. Dad, Daniel signed the power of attorney before his breakdown. I'm managing family finances now. You don't need to worry about... The signature was forged. The words hung between us like a challenge. Michael's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. That's a serious accusation. I compared it to his signature on building permit BR 2024-0892. Dad, Michael's voice was softer now, almost gentle. I know this is hard, watching your brother deteriorate like this, but you can't start seeing conspiracies where none exist. Show me the original power of attorney. It's with my attorney. Which attorney? Dad, you're not a lawyer. You wouldn't understand. I understand forgery. Michael stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the linoleum floor. The businessman mask slipped, revealing something colder underneath. You know what? Fine. You want to play detective? Let's go see Daniel right now. Ask him about the signature. See if he remembers signing anything. We took the elevator to the second floor in silence. Room 237 was quiet, curtains drawn. Daniel lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, connected to an IV drip that fed clear liquid into his arm. "Danny," Michael said loudly, "Dad wants to ask you about some documents." Daniel turned his head slowly. His eyes were glazed, unfocused. "Documents?" "The power of attorney," I said. "The one you allegedly signed on March 15th. Daniel blinked several times, struggling to focus. "Power of... what?" Michael crossed his arms. "See? He doesn't even remember. The psychiatric evaluation was clear, Dad. Severe paranoid delusions, possible early-stage dementia. The doctors say..." "What doctors?" I interrupted. "Dr. Harrison, the staff psychiatrist. I want to speak with Dr. Harrison." "Dad?" Michael's voice carried a warning now. "Dr. Harrison is a respected professional. Are you questioning his medical judgment?" "I'm questioning why my brother is heavily sedated for alleged paranoia. Because paranoid patients can become violent. It's for his own safety." I looked at Daniel, who was struggling to keep his eyes open. This wasn't paranoia. This was chemical restraint. "Danny, can you hear me? Arnold?" His voice was thick, slurred. "They said I was sick. Tell me about the signature." Daniel's eyes widened slightly, a moment of clarity breaking through the medication fog. "Not mine," he whispered. "Check the loop patterns." Michael stepped forward quickly. "Dad, you're agitating him." The nurse said, "What nurse?" "The one who called me yesterday. Said you were upsetting Daniel with questions about business documents." The pieces clicked into place. Michael had people watching, reporting. This wasn't just theft. It was a coordinated campaign to control the narrative. "You had me followed?" "Dad, I had you monitored for your own good. Grief makes people irrational. I didn't want you doing something you'd regret." Something you'd regret. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Step out of line and I might find myself in the bed next to Daniel's. "You think I'm irrational?" "I think you're a good man who's in over his head. This is complicated legal and financial territory. Let me handle what? Stealing from your own family?" Michael's face flushed red. "I am protecting this family. From your mismanagement, from Daniel's incompetence, from decisions that could destroy everything Dad built, Grandpa built, whatever. The point is, someone needs to make adult decisions around here." Adult decisions. Like I hadn't been making decisions since before Michael was born. "I see." I stood up slowly, meeting Michael's eyes. He was taller than me by 3 inches, but in that moment, he seemed very small. "Dad, if you keep interfering with Daniel's treatment, I'll have to speak with Dr. Harrison about your mental state too." There it was, the real threat. I nodded calmly and walked toward the door. But before leaving, I turned back. "Michael? Yeah? You just made a mistake." And I walked out, leaving him to wonder what I meant. That evening, I sat in my truck outside Rebecca Thompson's law office, staring at the stack of documents in my passenger seat. The forged power of attorney, bank statements showing the $128,000 transfer, photos of Daniel's real signature versus the fake one, 30 years of building relationships in this city, and Michael thought I was powerless because I wore work boots instead of dress shoes. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "Mr. Bradley, this is Detective Frank Wilson. Can you meet tomorrow morning? Have some information about your situation." I texted back. 9 a.m. good? Perfect. Bring everything. I scrolled through my contacts and found another number. Tommy Wilson, Frank's son. Good kid, worked for Henderson Construction. I'd hired his crew 3 times for major renovations. Reliable, honest, the kind of worker who showed up early and stayed late without being asked. "Tommy, it's Arnold Bradley. You working tomorrow?" "Yes, sir. Starting a kitchen remodel on 6th Street? Your dad helping with something for me. Just wanted to thank you for putting in a good word. Dad speaks highly of you, Mr. Bradley. Says you're one of the honest contractors in this city. Your dad's good people, too." After hanging up, I realized something important. Michael saw my relationships as weaknesses. The Spanish-speaking contractors, the blue-collar workers, the small business owners who'd built Austin from the ground up. But these people formed a network. They talked to each other. They looked out for each other. Rebecca had told me something interesting during our meeting yesterday. "Arnold, real estate fraud cases often involve multiple victims. If Michael is forging documents for your properties, he might be doing it elsewhere too. I pulled out my notebook, the same weathered composition book I'd used to track job sites for 15 years. In it, I'd written down everything I could remember about our family properties: purchase dates, renovation costs, rental histories, tenant names. One name stood out: Sarah Martinez. She'd rented our Oak Street duplex for 2 years before buying her own place. Good tenant, worked as a paralegal for some downtown law firm, always paid rent on time, took care of the property, asked permission before hanging pictures. I found her number in my old rental records and called. "Sarah, this is Arnold Bradley. You used to rent our duplex on Oak Street." "Mr. Bradley, how are you? I still drive by that place sometimes. You keeping it in good shape?" "That's actually why I'm calling. Having some family issues with the properties. Wondering if you might know any real estate attorneys who handle fraud cases." "Fraud? Mr. Bradley, what happened?" "Someone may be forging documents to gain control of our rental properties." "Jesus, that's terrible. Listen, I work for Martinez and Associates downtown. We do a lot of real estate litigation. My boss, Elena Martinez, specializes in elder fraud and property theft. Want me to ask if she'd talk to you?" Elena Martinez. Mexican surname like mine, someone who might understand that hard work and honesty mattered more than graduate degrees. "Would you?" "Of course." Elena's passionate about protecting family property rights. She grew up in a family construction business too. I'll call her tonight. After hanging up, I realized Michael had made a crucial error. He thought isolating Daniel would isolate me too. But Daniel and I weren't just business partners. We were connected to an entire community of people who'd benefited from our fair dealing over 3 decades. The Hispanic contractors who got their first big jobs from Bradley and Sons Construction. The tenants who appreciated reasonable rent and quick repairs. The suppliers who knew we paid our bills on time. The city inspectors who respected our building standards. The bank loan officers who'd watched us pay off mortgages early. Michael saw individual transactions. I saw relationships. My notebook contained more than property records. It contained 30 years of connections. People who owed favors. People who'd trust my word over a stranger in a suit. People who understood that reputation mattered more than credentials. I started making a list. Detective Frank Wilson, Rebecca Thompson, Sarah Martinez, and Elena Martinez. Tommy Wilson and his construction crew, the building inspector who'd signed off on permit BR 2024-0892, the notary who'd supposedly witnessed Daniel's signature. Michael had one advantage: legal documents that appeared legitimate. I had something more powerful: a network of people who knew the difference between right and wrong. Tomorrow, I'd start finding out just how deep that network went, and whether it was strong enough to save my family's legacy from my own son. Because turns out, reading blueprints teaches you to spot forgeries too. And I'd been reading blueprints for 37 years. Easter Sunday, 2024. My sister Carmen was hosting the annual family dinner at her house on the east side. 12 relatives gathered around 2 folding tables, pushed together in her living room. The smell of tamales and barbacoa filled the air, along with the familiar mix of English and Spanish that marked our family gatherings. Michael arrived late, carrying a bottle of expensive wine and wearing a pressed white shirt that probably cost more than most people made in a week. He kissed Carmen on both cheeks and shook hands with the men. Uncle Roberto, my cousin Jose, Carmen's husband David. "Sorry I'm late. Had to handle some family business at the hospital." "How's Daniel doing?" Carmen asked. Michael's expression grew appropriately somber. "It's difficult. The doctors say his condition is deteriorating. Severe paranoid delusions about money. He actually thinks someone is stealing from the family business." Uncle Roberto frowned. "Stealing? What kind of stealing?" "Dad can explain better than I can." Michael looked directly at me across the room. "He's been asking a lot of questions about our financial arrangements lately." The conversation stopped. 12 faces turned toward me, waiting. I set down my beer. "Someone forged Daniel's signature on a power of attorney." "Dad," Michael's voice carried a warning, "we discussed this." "No, we didn't discuss anything. You told me Daniel was paranoid. I found evidence he was right." Carmen moved closer. Arnold, what evidence? I pulled out my phone and showed the photos. Daniel's real signature on the building permit versus the fake signature on the power of attorney. Jose studied both images. Ese, those don't look the same. That's because they're not the same, I said. Michael stepped forward, wine glasses in hand, radiating the kind of calm authority he'd learned in business school. Family, I know this is uncomfortable, but Dad is experiencing some confusion about our legal arrangements. Daniel signed the power of attorney before his psychiatric episode. Dad doesn't understand modern estate planning, so he's seeing conspiracies where none exist. Dad doesn't understand. The phrase hung in the air like an insult. Around the table, faces showed a mix of concern and confusion. These were working people. Construction workers, teachers, nurses, shop owners. They understood hard work and family loyalty, but legal terminology made them nervous. Arnold, Uncle Roberto said carefully, if Daniel really signed the papers... He didn't sign them, I interrupted. Someone forged his name to steal our rental properties. Michael laughed, not unkindly, but with the patient amusement of someone correcting a child's misconception. Dad, forgery is a serious crime. Are you really accusing someone in this family of criminal behavior? The question was designed to back me into a corner. Either admit I was wrong, or directly accuse Michael in front of everyone. I looked around the table. Carmen, who'd cleaned houses for 20 years to send her kids to college. Jose, who'd started as a day laborer and now owned his own landscaping company. Uncle Roberto, who'd worked night shifts at the semiconductor plant for 30 years. These people understood what it meant to build something from nothing. Michael, I said quietly, show everyone the power of attorney. Dad, you're embarrassing yourself. Show them. Michael's composure cracked slightly. I don't carry legal documents to family dinners. Then describe Daniel's signature. What? You've seen it thousands of times. Describe how he signs his name. Michael looked around the table, suddenly uncertain. It's a normal signature. What's normal about it? Dad, this is ridiculous. Does he use tight loops or loose loops on the capital letters? I don't know. Does he connect all the letters or lift the pen? Dad, you don't know how your own uncle signs his name? The room was completely quiet now. Even the children had stopped playing. I know enough, Michael said defensively. I know he signed the power of attorney willingly before his breakdown. When was his breakdown? March 15th. What time? What? What time on March 15th did Daniel have his breakdown? Michael's face flushed. I don't know the exact time. The power of attorney is dated March 15th at 2 p.m. Daniel was admitted to Pine Valley at 10 a.m. How did he sign a legal document 4 hours after being committed to a psychiatric hospital? The silence stretched for 30 seconds. Jose put down his beer. Carmen crossed herself. Uncle Roberto leaned back in his chair. Michael, Carmen said slowly, how do you explain that? Michael set down his wine glass with shaking hands. When he spoke, his voice was louder, more desperate. Look, I know this family has always struggled with complexity. Dad's great with manual labor, but he doesn't understand modern financial instruments. Daniel was making terrible investment decisions. The power of attorney protects our family assets from what? I interrupted. From people who don't understand how money works in the 21st century. The mask was off now. Michael's true feelings spilled out like water from a broken pipe. You think I don't understand money? Dad, you're a contractor. You know pipes and wiring, but you don't know real estate law or investment strategy or tax optimization. This family needs professional management, not, he gestured around the room, not whatever this is. Whatever this is. The phrase hit the room like a slap. Carmen's eyes narrowed. Jose stood up. Uncle Roberto's face hardened into something I hadn't seen since he'd fought in Vietnam. Michael, Carmen said coldly, what exactly do you think this is? I think this is a family that's been content with mediocrity for 3 generations. Working construction, cleaning houses, fixing cars. Small dreams, small results. Dad built a nice little rental portfolio, but he doesn't have the vision to maximize its potential. Maximize our? Uncle Roberto's voice was dangerously quiet. You think your father hasn't maximized anything? Uncle Roberto, with respect, Arnold never finished high school. I have an MBA from UT. I understand financial markets, real estate trends, investment vehicles that can generate. Get out! The words came from Carmen, spoken with absolute finality. Carmen, I'm trying to help this family. Get out of my house. Michael looked around the table, searching for support. He found 12 faces, staring back with expressions ranging from disappointment to disgust. You're making a mistake, he said. When Dad loses everything because he refused professional help, remember this conversation. He grabbed his jacket and walked toward the door. But before leaving, he turned back one final time. Dad, last chance. Drop this conspiracy theory and let me protect what's left of our assets. I stood up slowly, meeting his eyes. Michael? Yeah? Never underestimate a man who built everything twice. The doors slammed behind him. Tuesday night, 10:47 p.m., I parked my truck 3 blocks from Pine Valley Psychiatric Hospital and walked through the employee entrance behind a group of night shift nurses. Hospitals run on routine. Nobody questions a confident man in clean work clothes carrying a clipboard. The night security guard, a heavy-set man named Carlos, according to his name tag, barely looked up from his paperwork. Evening, I said in Spanish. ¿Cómo está? Bien, bien, you new maintenance? Sí, pipe leak on second floor. Emergency call. Carlos waved me through. Sometimes speaking Spanish was an advantage Michael never understood. I took the stairs to avoid security cameras in the elevators. Second floor, room 237. The hallway was dimly lit, quiet except for the hum of medical equipment and the distant sound of a television from the nurse's station. Daniel was awake, staring at the ceiling. The IV drip continued feeding clear liquid into his arm, probably a mild sedative to keep him compliant, but not completely unconscious. Danny, I whispered. He turned his head slowly. Arnold? How are you feeling? Better. They reduced the medication yesterday. Said I was showing improvement. You remember what you told me about building permit BR 2024-0892? Daniel's eyes sharpened. The signature comparison. I found more evidence. Michael forged the power of attorney, transferred $128,000 so far. I know. I hid backup documents before they brought me here. Where? Safety deposit box at First National. Box 847. Key is taped under my desk drawer, left side. I memorized the information. Danny, I need you to trust me with something crazy. How crazy? We're going to switch places. For 2 hours. I need access to your medical files, and you need to get those documents to my attorney. Daniel tried to sit up, but the restraints held him down. Arnold, if they catch you. They won't. Look at us. Even medicated and exhausted, Daniel looked exactly like me. Same height, same build, same weathered face. 61 years of identical genetics. The nurses will know. Night shift, skeleton crew. They check patients every 4 hours. Last check was at 10 p.m. Next check is 2 a.m. That gives us a window. Daniel studied my face. You have a plan? Get you out of here long enough to retrieve the documents. You drive to Rebecca Thompson's house. She's expecting you. I gather evidence from inside. Arnold, this is insane. Insane is letting our son steal everything Dad built. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, what do you need me to do? I began undoing his restraints. Put on my clothes, take my truck keys, drive to First National, get the documents from the safety deposit box, then go to Rebecca's house. She's waiting with Elena Martinez, another attorney. Elena Martinez? I know her. She handled the Rodriguez family's property dispute last year. Sarah Martinez put us in touch. Small world. I helped Daniel out of the hospital gown and into my work clothes. Jeans, flannel shirt, steel-toed boots. He moved slowly but steadily. The medication was wearing off. How do I explain this to the attorneys? Tell them everything. Show them the documents. Elena specializes in elder fraud and property theft. She'll know what to do. Daniel put on my baseball cap and looked in the small mirror above the sink. Jesus, we really do look identical. Always have. Now go. Back entrance, past the loading dock. Trucks parked on Maple Street, blue Ford F-150. Daniel hesitated at the door. Arnold, if something goes wrong, nothing's going wrong, trust me. He squeezed my shoulder and slipped out of the room. I changed into the hospital gown and lay down on the bed, pulling the thin sheet up to my chest. The mattress smelled like disinfectant and sadness. This was what Michael had done to his own uncle, reduced him to a drugged prisoner in a sterile room. At 11:30 p.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway. A young male nurse appeared in the doorway, checking his chart. "Good evening, Mr. Bradley. How are you feeling?" I kept my voice groggy, like Daniel's had been earlier. "Tired, very tired." "That's normal, and the new medication should help you sleep better." He checked my IV line and made notes on his chart. "Your nephew called earlier, asked about adjusting your sedation schedule." "Michael?" "Yes, he's very concerned about your welfare. Says you've been having episodes of paranoia and aggression." Episodes of paranoia and aggression. Michael was building a case for stronger medication, longer hospitalization. "I feel confused sometimes." "That's understandable. Mental illness can be very disorienting, but you're in good hands here. Dr. Harrison is one of the best psychiatrists in Austin." After the nurse left, I got up and searched the room. Daniel's medical chart was clipped to the foot of the bed. I photographed every page with my phone. Admission date, March 15th, 2024, 10:15 a.m. Admitting physician, Dr. James Harrison. Diagnosis, paranoid delusional disorder, possible early dementia. Treatment plan, haloperidol 5 milligaules twice daily, lorazepam as needed. Family contact, Michael Bradley, nephew, authorized to make medical decisions. Notes, patient claims family members are stealing money and forging documents. Refuses to accept reality of his mental condition. I photographed the medication schedule, the nursing notes, the authorization forms, everything. Then I explored the hallway. Room 235 was empty. Room 239 housed an elderly woman who appeared to be sleeping. Room 241 was locked, probably a supply room. At the nurses' station, I could see 3 staff members, 2 nurses and 1 security guard. The computer terminals were unattended but password protected. Too risky. But the filing cabinet behind the desk was unlocked. I waited until all 3 staff members were distracted by a call light from another room, then slipped behind the counter. The filing cabinet contained current patient files, organized alphabetically. Bradley, Daniel, was in the second drawer. The file was thick, much thicker than a 3-week hospitalization should generate. I photographed the entire contents. Original intake forms signed by Michael Bradley. Psychiatric evaluation notes from Dr. Bape. Harrison, medication authorization forms, insurance documentation, family contact information, a handwritten note. Patient's nephew reports history of financial paranoia and aggressive behavior toward family members. The intake forms were the smoking gun. Michael had provided the psychiatric history that led to Daniel's diagnosis. According to the paperwork, Daniel had been increasingly paranoid about family finances for 6 months. He'd accused family members of theft and become verbally aggressive when confronted about his delusions. None of it was true, but Dr. Harrison had taken Michael's word as fact. I was photographing the last page when I heard footsteps approaching. I quickly closed the file, slipped back to room 237, and got into bed just as the night security guard passed by. At 1:45 a.m., I heard my truck pulling into the parking lot. Daniel was back. He appeared in the doorway 5 minutes later, still wearing my clothes, but moving with more energy than he'd shown in weeks. "How did it go?" I whispered. "Perfect. Rebecca and Elena have everything. The safety deposit box contained copies of all the forged documents, plus recordings." "Recordings?" "I've been taping my phone conversations with Michael for 2 months, ever since I started suspecting something was wrong." "Jesus, Danny." "Elena says we have enough evidence for criminal fraud charges. She's filing emergency injunctions first thing tomorrow morning." We switched clothes again. Daniel put on the hospital gown and lay down on the bed. I noticed his hands weren't shaking anymore. "How do you feel?" "Like myself again. Whatever they were giving me, it was more than just a mild sedative." I tucked the hospital sheet around him. "Danny?" "Yeah?" "Tomorrow's going to be interesting." "Arnold?" "Yeah?" "Thanks for not giving up on me." I squeezed his hand and walked toward the door. Family is family. The truck ride home was quiet. In 12 hours, Elena Martinez would walk into Travis County Family Court with enough evidence to freeze every property transfer Michael had authorized. Detective Frank Wilson would receive a formal fraud complaint with documented proof of forgery. Michael thought he was stealing from a confused old man and his delusional brother. He was about to discover he'd been stealing from the wrong family. Wednesday morning, 8:15 a.m., I sat in Elena Martinez's office watching her review the evidence Daniel and I had gathered. Her law degree hung on the wall next to a photograph of her father's construction crew from 1987, including my father standing third from the left. "Arnold, this is the most comprehensive fraud case I've seen in 15 years of practice." She spread the documents across her conference table: forged power of attorney, bank transfer records, Daniel's medical files, recorded phone conversations, and my photographs comparing signatures. The evidence shows a pattern of financial elder abuse, medical fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft. Michael coordinated with Dr. Harrison to fabricate a psychiatric diagnosis, then use that diagnosis to justify taking control of family assets. What's our next step? Emergency injunction to freeze all property transfers, criminal fraud complaint with the Travis County District Attorney, medical malpractice lawsuit against Dr. Harrison and Pine Valley Psychiatric Hospital. At 9:30 a.m., Elena filed 3 separate legal actions at the Travis County Courthouse: emergency motion for financial asset protection, criminal fraud complaint against Michael Bradley, medical malpractice lawsuit against Pine Valley Psychiatric Hospital. By 10:45 a.m., Detective Frank Wilson had a warrant to examine Michael's financial records. By 11:30 a.m., the Travis County District Attorney's Office had opened a formal investigation into elder financial abuse. At 12:15 p.m., my phone rang. Michael's voice was tight with controlled panic. "Dad, what the hell did you do?" "What do you mean?" "My attorney just called. Someone filed fraud charges against me. My bank accounts are frozen. The DA's office wants to question me about forged documents." I was standing in the courthouse parking lot, watching Elena Martinez emerge from the building with a satisfied expression. "Michael, I don't know anything about that." "Bullshit. This has your fingerprints all over it." "My fingerprints are on construction projects, not legal documents." "Dad, you're making a huge mistake. I was trying to protect our family assets." "From who?" "From your mismanagement. From Daniel's incompetence. From decisions that could destroy everything." "And what decisions?" "Refusing to sell the Oak Street property when values peaked. Keeping tenants who pay below market rent. Maintaining old properties instead of flipping them for maximum profit." Maximum profit. That's what this was really about. Not protecting family assets, but maximizing returns on Michael's MBA investment strategy. "Michael, those tenants have been with us for years. Maria Santos has rented the Elm Street duplex for 8 years. Never missed a payment. Takes care of the property like it's her own house." "Dad, Maria Santos pays $1,850 per month. Market rate for that unit is $2,650. You're losing $800 monthly because you're too soft to raise rent." "I'm losing $800 monthly?" "We're losing $800 monthly. Multiply that across 17 properties, and your kindness is costing us $180,000 per year. Those properties generate $350,000 annual profit after all expenses. They could generate $530,000 with proper management." I understood now. This wasn't about protecting family wealth. It was about maximizing it. Michael saw our rental properties as underperforming assets that needed optimization. "What about the tenants?" "What about them? This is business, Dad. You raise rents, or you sell to developers who will." "So you forged Daniel's signature to gain control." "I protected family interests when family members were too emotional to make rational decisions." Protected. The word Michael used when he meant controlled. "Michael, where are you right now?" "My office. Why?" "Stay there. Detective Wilson wants to ask you some questions." I hung up and called Frank Wilson. "Frank, Michael's at his office. Bradley Real Estate Development, 1247 South Lamar Boulevard, Suite 300. "Perfect. We'll be there in 20 minutes. At 2:30 p.m., Elena Martinez called with an update. Arnold, Judge Patricia Moore granted our emergency injunction. All property transfers are frozen pending investigation. Michael cannot sell, mortgage, or transfer any family assets. What about Daniel? I'm filing a motion to have him reevaluated by an independent psychiatrist. Dr. Sarah Chen has agreed to conduct a comprehensive assessment. How long will that take? 2 weeks maximum. But based on the evidence you gathered, I expect Dr. Chen will conclude that Daniel was improperly diagnosed and medicated. At 4:45 p.m., Detective Wilson called. Arnold, we arrested Michael an hour ago. Charges include financial elder abuse, forgery, conspiracy to commit fraud, and falsifying medical records. What's next? He'll be arraigned tomorrow. Bail hearing Friday. DA's office is confident they can get a conviction based on the evidence you provided. That evening, I drove to Pine Valley Psychiatric Hospital to check on Daniel. Dr. Sarah Chen was reviewing his medical chart when I arrived. Mr. Bradley, I've completed my preliminary assessment of your brother. In my professional opinion, he shows no signs of paranoid delusional disorder or dementia. What about the previous diagnosis? Based on the intake forms and family history provided by Michael Bradley, Dr. Harrison made reasonable diagnostic assumptions. However, that history appears to have been fabricated. So Daniel was never mentally ill? Your brother may have been experiencing anxiety and stress related to discovering financial fraud within his family, but anxiety is not paranoid delusion, and legitimate concern about theft is not mental illness. I found Daniel in his room sitting up in bed reading a newspaper. His eyes were clear, focused, alert. How do you feel? Like I've been asleep for 3 weeks and just woke up. Dr. Chen says I can go home tomorrow. What about the medications? Discontinued this morning. Turns out I was being treated for a condition I never had. We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Brothers who'd survived their son's betrayal. Arnold? Yeah? What happens to Michael? He'll probably go to prison. Elena says financial elder abuse carries a 3 to 5 year sentence in Texas. Daniel nodded slowly. I keep thinking about when he was little. Remember how he used to help us measure lumber for construction projects? He was so proud when we let him use the level. I remember. Where did we go wrong? We didn't go wrong. We gave him every opportunity to choose right over wrong. He chose wrong. Still our son. Still our responsibility to stop him. Daniel smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from him in months. Guess we stopped him. Yeah, I said. We stopped him. 2 months later, I stood in Travis County Courtroom 301 watching Judge Patricia Moore sentence my son to 4 years in state prison for financial elder abuse, forgery, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Michael wore an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. His MBA meant nothing here. His expensive suits were gone. The confident businessman who'd patronized his blue-collar father had become inmate number BR 2024-7739. Mr. Bradley, Judge Moore said, your crimes represent a betrayal of the most fundamental family bonds. You exploited your position as a trusted family member to steal from elderly relatives, then used the medical system to silence your primary victim. This court sentences you to 4 years imprisonment and orders full restitution of $128,000 plus legal fees. Elena Martinez squeezed my shoulder. Justice served. I felt no satisfaction, only sadness for the son I'd raised who'd become a stranger. The financial recovery was swift and complete. Wells Fargo reversed all unauthorized transfers within 48 hours of receiving court documentation. The $128,000 returned to our family account, plus $12,000 in legal fees Michael's frozen assets would cover. But the broader consequences rippled through Austin's real estate community like shockwaves. Michael lost his real estate license permanently. The Texas Real Estate Commission's disciplinary board voted unanimously to revoke his license and ban him from any property-related business for life. Bradley Real Estate Development, Michael's company, dissolved within a week. His clients, mostly affluent investors, buying Austin rental properties, fled when news of his fraud conviction hit the local newspapers. Austin Business Journal ran the story on page 1. Local real estate agent sentenced for elder fraud. Pine Valley Psychiatric Hospital faced a federal investigation. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services launched a review of their involuntary commitment procedures after discovering that Dr. Harrison had diagnosed Daniel based solely on family testimony without independent verification. Dr. Harrison resigned quietly. His medical license remained valid, but malpractice insurance companies flagged him as high risk. No major hospital would hire him. Last I heard, he was working at a rural clinic outside San Antonio. The social consequences hit closer to home. At the next family gathering, Carmen's birthday party in June, 3 relatives didn't show up. Michael's wife, Jennifer, and their 2 children. Michael's best friend from college, Steve Rodriguez, who'd married my niece. And Jennifer's brother, who'd always believed Michael's version of family dynamics. But 8 relatives did show up, and they brought friends. Word had spread through Austin's Hispanic community about the elder fraud case and its resolution. Families facing similar situations reached out for advice. Elena Martinez's practice gained 12 new clients within 6 months. The publicity brought unexpected benefits to Bradley & Sons Construction. The Austin Chronicle wrote a follow-up story. Contractor exposes son's fraud, saves family legacy. Suddenly, everyone wanted to hire the company that stood up to white-collar crime. I received 14 new construction contracts by October. Kitchen renovations, bathroom remodels, full house additions, all from families who'd read about our story and decided they wanted to work with people who valued family loyalty over maximum profit. Our rental property business thrived. Maria Santos, who'd rented our Elm Street duplex for 8 years at below-market rates, referred 4 friends looking for honest landlords. All 4 became long-term tenants. Carlos Mendoza, who'd lived in our Oak Street property for 3 years, recommended us to his nephew, who was buying his first rental property. We handled the renovation work and property management. "Mr. Bradley," Carlos said, "you could have raised my rent to market rate. But you kept it affordable when my wife was sick. That's not something I forget." Daniel recovered completely within 6 weeks, Dr. Payback. Sarah Chen's independent evaluation confirmed no signs of mental illness, just stress-induced anxiety from discovering his nephew's theft attempts. The unnecessary medications cleared from his system, restoring his sharp financial mind. Together, we restructured our property management approach. Instead of maximizing rents, we focused on maintaining properties excellently while keeping rates reasonable for reliable tenants. Instead of selling properties at peak market values, we held them for long-term appreciation and steady income. Our approach proved profitable in unexpected ways. While Austin's rental market grew increasingly volatile, with landlords chasing maximum rents and tenants moving frequently, our properties maintained 97% occupancy with tenants who stayed an average of 4 years. The financial math was compelling. Lower tenant turnover meant fewer vacancy periods, reduced advertising costs, and minimal property damage from frequent moves. Our below-market rents generated higher net profits than market-rate properties with high turnover. By December 2024, our 17 properties were worth $9.8 million. $600,000 more than Michael's March appraisal. Austin's real estate market had continued rising, validating our long-term holding strategy. But the most significant change was family dynamics. Daniel and I became closer than we'd been since childhood, managing the family business as equal partners, making decisions together, sharing the satisfaction of building something that lasted. We hired Maria Elena Santos, Maria's daughter, as our part-time property manager. Recent college graduate, bilingual, understood both the business side and the human side of rental property management. Carmen hosted monthly family dinners again, but the conversations changed. Less small talk, more substantial discussions about family values, financial responsibility, and the difference between building wealth and accumulating money. The younger generation, nephews, nieces, grandchildren, asked more questions about construction work and property management. They'd seen how blue-collar skills and honest relationships had defeated white-collar crime and educational credentials. Uncle Roberto summed it up best at Thanksgiving. Arnold taught us that respect isn't something you inherit. It's something you earn. Every day, with every choice. I kept Michael's business card in my wallet, not from nostalgia, but as a reminder. Education without character is dangerous. Ambition without integrity is destructive. Family loyalty without boundaries enables abuse. My son had learned to optimize everything except his own moral compass. That was a choice no parent could make for him. But the choice to stop him, that was mine to make, and I'd made it. Today, 18 months after Michael's conviction, I'm standing in the same courthouse where Judge Moore sentenced him, watching Daniel sign new partnership agreements for Bradley and Sons Construction. We're making it official. Equal ownership, equal decision-making, equal responsibility for the family legacy Dad started 50 years ago. Rebecca Thompson notarized the documents, smiling as she watched us formalize what had always been true. The Bradley twins were better together than apart. "Gentlemen," she said, "you've built something remarkable here. 17 properties, 0 debt, and a reputation that money can't buy." Daniel looked healthier than he had in years. The stress lines around his eyes had disappeared. His hands were steady, his voice clear, his mind sharp as ever. No one who met him today would believe he'd once been diagnosed with paranoid delusions. "Arnold," he said, "I need to tell you something." "What's that?" "I never thanked you properly for not believing the diagnosis, for not accepting Michael's version of reality, for fighting when it would have been easier to let it go. You're my brother. Fighting for you wasn't optional. Still, thank you." We walked out of the courthouse into bright Austin sunshine. The city was growing rapidly around us. New hotels, tech companies, luxury apartment buildings. Property values continued rising, making our portfolio worth more each month. But we weren't selling. We'd learned the difference between maximizing wealth and building security. Wealth could disappear overnight. Security took generations to build. Our rental properties house 23 families now. Good people, working people, families who appreciated fair dealing and reasonable rent increases. Maria Santos still lived in the Elm Street duplex, 8 years and counting. Carlos Mendoza was saving for a down payment on his own house while renting our Oak Street property. These weren't just business relationships anymore, they were community connections. When Carlos's daughter graduated from high school, Daniel and I attended the ceremony. When Maria's husband started his own landscaping business, we hired him for property maintenance. Michael would call this inefficient, emotional decision-making, leaving money on the table. I call it sustainable prosperity, building wealth that strengthens communities instead of extracting it. 3 weeks ago, I received a letter from Michael. First communication in 18 months. He was eligible for parole in 14 months, had completed a financial ethics program in prison, wanted to rebuild our relationship. I haven't responded yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but any relationship we build will have new boundaries. Clear, firm, non-negotiable. Family means loyalty, but loyalty doesn't mean blind trust. Blood connection doesn't excuse betrayal. Love doesn't require enabling destructive behavior. Michael destroyed our old relationship when he chose money over family. If he wants a new relationship, he'll need to prove that his values have changed, not just his circumstances. Daniel and I have established new family policies. All financial decisions require unanimous agreement between both partners. No exceptions. All legal documents require independent attorney review. No family member signs anything under pressure. Any family member who disagrees with business decisions is welcome to voice concerns. But attempted theft results in permanent banishment. These boundaries aren't cruel, they're protective. They ensure that what happened with Michael never happens again. Last month, my grandson Ricardo asked if he could work for Bradley and Sons Construction during summer break. He's 17, strong, eager to learn the trade that built his family's security. "Grandpa," he said, "I want to understand how you built all this." I handed him a level and a measuring tape. First lesson, measure twice, cut once. Second lesson, your reputation is worth more than your profit margin. What's the third lesson? Never let anyone make you feel small for honest work. These are the lessons Michael never learned, despite every opportunity I gave him. These are the lessons that matter more than MBA programs or investment strategies or financial optimization theories. Hard work, family loyalty, community responsibility, boundaries that protect what you've built. The American dream isn't about maximizing individual wealth. It's about building something your children can be proud of and your grandchildren can inherit. That's what I did. That's what my father did before me. That's what Ricardo will do after I'm gone. Some things are worth more than money. It took losing my son to remember that. But I remember it now, and I won't forget it again. Have you ever had family underestimate your abilities? Let me know in the comments below.